Something about the Greek tradition of athletics that has always captured my attention, and the idea that competition actually comes from roots that mean to strive together. And so when we're talking about training this body of ours, there are a lot of reasons for training the body, and there are a lot of ways to train the body. And I wanted to look back to the ancient Greeks for the reason that when they were training the body in the highest sense, they were doing it as something of an exercise for the soul. Anything that we do in our lifetime in the physical world really reflects something in a higher aspect of ourselves, or it could and should. So as a Greek athlete was training themselves physically, there were all sorts of other aspects of themselves that they were intended to train. Pythagoras had his school. It was a school of philosophy, and it had attached to it a gymnasium. And so there was the expectation that one would train the body as well as the mind and all of the virtues. So in that respect, we could talk about training the soul as well. Even the Olympics had a component to it that was much, much more than the body. Just as a philosopher is not expected to learn the art of philosophy just so that he or she could defeat someone else in a verbal battle, so an athlete was not just supposed to train for the love of victory, but rather for the pursuit of personal excellence, or arete. So there really was a very strong emphasis on this idea of an inner training. There was something about looking at the entire human being that was important from a Greek perspective of training the body. Anything, it seems like, we do with this body was meant to elevate the rest of the body. The mind is going to think more clearly, and with the right training, one will have a more refined ethical nature. I get from this that there was a great respect for the human body, which we don't necessarily find in all of our sports pursuits in today's world, for example. If one has that kind of view of the body, it does two things. It holds the body as something that deserves to be treated well, trained well, in order to be a good servant of the soul. And it also gives the idea of not being overly attached to the body, because there's something more important than the body. So when we're training it to be able to use it for its highest purpose. There is a training of the body that we need to do in order for us to bring into the world that which we have coming through the higher aspects of ourselves. And then also there was a certain, even though all of that training was done, there's also a certain amount of detachment, such that even if we respect this body, we treat it well, we train it well, it is meant to serve a higher purpose. And so we have something like the tradition of the marathon. And that came from a runner needing to deliver a very important message in war that was going to make the difference in terms of hundreds or thousands of lives. There's a certain amount of grace in having trained the body to do that much of a deed of service that one can leave it if one needs to. Also different than having this idea of training the body just to, have a great six-pack. We become very attached to that body. By the way, it makes it a lot more difficult to go through the aging process when we have this idea of how we want this trained body to look. And I think it just allows a little bit more freedom from that over-identification to this body that we have trained so well. Gymnastics was something that I love to do. Being on a team and supporting everyone else on the team was something that gave me great satisfaction. I love the feeling of my body moving through space when I first saw gymnasts. So I really love the experience of actually doing gymnastics. I love the discipline of knowing I needed to work really hard to get any of the tricks that I learned. I appreciated having strict coaches as opposed to very lenient coaches. I felt as if I learned a lot more that way. I think I wanted a more balanced life. I wanted to still be able to have time to spend with friends, to do a really good job in school, get good grades, and also be able to do this wonderful practice of gymnastics. Well, can I ask my question to everybody? It's kind of like this new little theory I have, and I want to see what you think of it. And this doesn't at all necessarily have to just apply to athletes or anybody training for any specific thing. I just wonder what you think of the idea of becoming body whisperers. And I'm thinking about these horse whisperers, and they have so much love for these horses. And their way of training the horses isn't, with the whips and the spurs, and they're not trying to break the horse's spirit. They are instead just really having so much gratitude for that horse and for the capabilities of that horse and that horse's own spirit. And so we think of them kind of just like whispering in the horse's ear to ask them to do all the things that they know that this horse could be capable of if the horse goes through this training. And evidently there are amazing feats that horses who have been trained this way can accomplish. Well, amazing feats aside, what do you think of the idea of us in terms of our own bodies and training our own bodies becoming body whisperers and having that kind of rapport with the body that's listening to, what the potentials of the body are, maybe what the problems of the body are at any given moment, and asking the best of the body while having that respect for it. I never had that idea before, so I just wanted to put it out there for the first time to see how it flew. It helps to have a good trainer, a good coach, a good instructor in any field, in any discipline, who would encourage you along that way instead of, yelling at you to work harder and faster and stronger, to encourage you to be a body whisperer to yourself. But that's ultimately the goal.
Like if this idea of being a body whisperer is trying to, in some way, listen to how we stay in balance, both vertically and horizontally in our lives, such that we can more, in a better way, mirror the whole and be a better contributor to the whole, be it a community or as large a whole as we can visualize being part of. But it has to do with this listening that you're talking about, Renee, of being a body whisperer, or being listening to the whisperer that's inside the body, I guess. But that's the challenge, is to maintain the, those two wings of flight,
I think from a personal aspect, I have definitely learned just through health challenges, and I'm, really blessed to be in good health in this season of my life. But I've experienced health challenges specifically with my digestion, and it took a lot of listening and paying attention to um, the symptoms and the signs and how I felt to really sort of get in touch with my body, with my digestive system, and not only be able to speak to my body, um, both in the mind, in the heart, and spirit, and also in the language of food and what I was putting into my body, which I believe is a powerful form of a way that we can whisper and speak to our body. But to be in tune really with how you feel, being able to pay attention and love our body in the long run by listening, we're able to actually produce really amazing outcomes and results. So, yeah, I think, paying attention to how you feel and what the body is saying is a really key factor to be able to whisper and speak back to your body in its own language.
What came to me was like, wow, we have intuition is always so much part of our lives, and most of the time we don't listen to it. We have it, but we really don't give attention to it most of the time. And when you brought the question, I immediately felt like, wow, this is really how the body is always telling us so much. And most of the time we don't ignore, or we don't have the fine ability to listen to it, because I think most of the time we are trained to train it instead of listening to it. So I love your idea. I was really excited when you mentioned that. Yeah.
Thank you all. It was really wonderful to share this experience with each of you, and to hear so many different thoughts and perspectives. And I look forward to moving with you, and just getting a tremendous workout every single time. Really a good one. So